for making this church not just a place of worship, but more importantly, a place of encounter, our encounter with the Lord, as well as our encounter with each other. In today's Gospel reading, Jesus meets a Samaritan woman. He meets her at a well. What begins as a simple conversation in that well becomes a life-changing conversation, a transformation, a life-changing encounter. That life-changing encounter, that profound transformation happens because Jesus does something courageous. Namely, he breaks barriers. He breaks two barriers. First, he breaks a social barrier. We must note that at the time of Jesus, it was unusual for a Jewish rabbi to speak publicly with a woman, especially if that woman is alone, as is the case of the Samaritan woman by the well. Most people would avoid such a situation, but Jesus does not avoid her. Instead, he approaches her and begins a respectful and dignified conversation. Secondly, Jesus breaks an ethnic and religious barrier. Jews and Samaritans had centuries of conflict, mistrust, and prejudice. Many Jewish people avoided traveling through Samaria altogether. That is why the woman is surprised when Jesus talks to her. In return, she asks, "How can you, a Jew, ask me, a Samaritan woman, for a drink?" Yet Jesus crosses that barrier and strikes a meaningful conversation with her. In effect, he creates an encounter where there was distance. He begins dialogue where there was mistrust. The actions of the Lord speaks volumes about the important aspect of our mission as Christians. This is emphasized by Pope Leo at the outset of his pontificate. He said that we Christians should become builders or bridge builders instead of wall builders. I repeat it again. We are called to become bridge builders in place of wall builders. Brothers and sisters, this message is of particular importance in our world today. We see divisions everywhere, divisions between nations, cultures, and peoples. We hear about conflicts and tensions in different parts of the world. In the Middle East, for example. These conflicts remind us how easily fear, suspicion, and resentment can divide human beings, and sadly lead them to killing each other, as is the case in Ukraine, as well as in the Middle East now. But the Gospel shows another way. Peace is not achieved by military conquest or dominance or destruction. Peace begins when someone gets the courage to take the first steps towards each other, toward the other, to engage the other in a respectful and dignified dialogue. In the Gospel passage, Jesus begins with a very simple request to a Samaritan woman. "Give me a drink. Give me something to drink." That small request begins a conversation, and that conversation opens the door for reconciliation. Sometimes, brothers and sisters, barriers grow quietly among us. Misunderstandings arise. Words are said that hurt others. Old conflicts remain unresolved Little by little, invisible walls are created between members of the community. Our community here, our community in Digimlo, is not an exception. Although we get quite well with each other, we get along quite well, we must admit that unresolved conflicts have created somehow barriers among us. A case in point is the long absence of some members of our choir. Choir members who were talented singers and musicians who sadly left our community because of misunderstanding, because of unresolved conflict. The season of Lent invites us to ask an honest question. Are there barriers in our community that we have built ourselves? Maybe because of pride, maybe because of past hurts, maybe because we feel misunderstood or unappreciated. The gospel today invites us to let the Lord break those barriers. We must let the Lord help us break those barriers. Reconciliation always begins when someone takes the first step, as demonstrated by the Lord in the gospel reading. The Samaritan woman herself in that reading becomes an example of transformation. At the beginning, she comes alone, perhaps avoiding Jesus, avoiding the Jews. But after meeting Jesus, she returns to her town and tells everyone about her transforming encounter with him. The woman who was once isolated becomes a bridge between Jesus and the Samaritans. Because of her witness, many people, many Samaritans come to believe that Jesus indeed is the Messiah. This is what the grace of the Lord does. When Jesus touches our lives, He not only quenches our thirst, but also transforms us into people who can heal divisions and bring people together. During this season of Lent, moreover, Jesus meets each of us at our own well, at our own place of woundedness, at our own struggles, at our questions about life. And the Lord offers us the living water of His grace. If we allow that grace to transform us, if we allow the Lord to break the barriers we have created in our lives, we too can become what our families, our communities, and our world need today. We become people who break barriers, people who restore relationships, and people who bridge